Breastfeeding is natural, and it is recommended that you breastfeed your baby for the first 6 months exclusively, and then continue breastfeeding for up to 2 years with complementary foods. So really nobody prepares you for breastfeeding, especially if you're a first-time mom. So once you start breastfeeding, you actually realize that sometimes it's a little difficult and you get to ask a few questions. So in today's episode, we will be answering the commonly asked questions, especially for first-time moms, on breastfeeding. Hi moms, my name is Betty Bakita and this is Wholesome Parenting. This is where we believe that there is no such thing as perfect parenting, only real parenting. And in real parenting, you have to ask those questions, experience every day as it comes. There are days you feel like this is too much. And so at Wholesome Parenting, we walk with you through the journey to ensure that you have a wholesome experience in your parenting journey. So on today's episode, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be answering the most commonly asked questions when it comes to breastfeeding. And this is especially for first-time moms who are experiencing breastfeeding for their first time. So I have compiled a few questions. So if you have more questions, please leave them in the comment section below or connect with us in our social media page on Facebook. It's Wholesome Parenting, mummiesandbaby.com. You can also check out this blog on our website at mummiesandbaby.com. I will leave a link to this blog in the description. So in our first question on breastfeeding frequently asked questions, the first one is breastfeeding painful? Well, breastfeeding is not supposed to be painful, but in the first few days when your baby is learning how to latch and your breast is experiencing constant sucking for the first time, you may have some pain, especially if the breast, your nipple has some cracks as your baby is trying to get some milk out of your breast. But this actually goes away with time. The only thing you should concentrate at that time is teaching your baby how to latch properly so that you and your baby can enjoy the breastfeeding sessions. And number 2, how soon should you feed your baby after giving birth? Well, it is recommended that you feed your baby within the first 1 hour after giving birth. So whoever is taking care of you will hand over the baby to you within the first 1 hour so that you're able to feed them. If you had a cesarean section and within that hour you are still in the recovery period, so you will have to wait for some time before you feed your baby, and within that time whoever is taking care of you will be able to feed the baby, and then from there, after you've recovered, you can start breastfeeding your baby. Okay, so when does breast milk come in after birth? Well, your breasts have been preparing for breastfeeding all through your pregnancy. So once you give birth and you bring the baby close to your breast, they will likely open their mouth to start sucking. But at that point, really, nothing much comes out because the milk is not really produced yet, but that sucking provokes the milk to come in. So milk doesn't really come in at that time, but within 2 to 3 days, the milk should have started coming in. But now, how will you know that the milk is starting to come in? You'll have to look out for different signs, like your breast will feel enlarged and full and heavier. Also, you will notice that whenever you're feeding your baby on one breast, the other breast is leaking, or when you're sleeping, the breasts may be leaking milk. Also, you will notice that your baby is feeding more and they're getting full quicker. When you notice these signs, you will be sure that milk is now coming in and your baby is actually getting enough milk. So you will not need to worry about the pain anymore, because the pain could actually come because the baby has nothing to feed on at that point. But once milk starts coming in, actually your breasts get more relaxed and it's easier for your baby to feed at that point. So what should you do if the milk doesn't come in? Well, this is a problem because for most moms, actually, the milk can take some time before it starts coming in. And if the baby doesn't feed, they will be crying all around, and it's really difficult. So if the milk doesn't come in, of course it will come in eventually, but there are some of the things that you can do to help it come in faster. For example, breastfeed frequently. Keep the baby there breastfeeding all the time. If you can't do that, then express the milk, so that it will stimulate the breast to produce more milk. What breastfeeding frequently does, it alerts the breast that there is more demand for milk, so it keeps on producing more. So with time, actually, you get enough milk to feed your baby. Also, drink a lot. Drink for two. Eat for one and drink for two, so that all that fluid that you're taking in, it is used in making the milk. And avoid feeling stressed, especially after giving birth. There are a lot of things that can actually make you stressed, especially if you don't get any support from your spouse or from your friends or people around you. You can actually get really stressed, but avoid such stress, and milk will come in actually faster. Okay, so now that you've given birth, you're starting to breastfeed, you don't know really how much your baby is taking at that time. How do you know if your baby is getting enough milk? Well, at that stage, your baby's tummy is really small, and so they don't really need too much at that point. But you can look out for these signs to know if your baby is getting enough. First, your baby will breastfeed and feed and then come off the breast by themselves. At that point, they have had enough, so they don't need more, so they just leave the breast. They just leave it. And also, you'll notice that your baby is feeding more. The first few sucks are actually rapid, and then after some time, they actually start to slow down and now suck big gulps. At that point, they're actually getting enough milk. And also, your baby feels relaxed. They look relaxed after a feeding session. That is to tell you that they have actually had enough milk. And also, observe how many wet diapers they have, how many dirty diapers they have, depending on their age at that time. So if they're having enough, like around 6 wet diapers, maybe 2 dirty diapers, you'll be sure they're actually getting enough milk. And at the first 2 weeks, your baby should gain weight consistently. You should notice some changes. You should notice that you're actually getting heavier within the first 2 weeks, and then from there they'll continue actually to grow. But if you're just starting to breastfeed, you will notice that you're getting enough milk. Once you see them gaining weight, you can actually notice some weight gain as you're feeding them. Okay, and now to the next question. Should you wake up your baby to feed? Well, it is recommended that you feed on demand. So if your baby is sleeping, you can just let them sleep until they wake up by themselves to feed. But some parents choose to wake the baby every 2 to 3 hours for those that are breastfeeding, and every 3 to 4 hours for those that are bottle feeding. So whichever you choose to do, actually, this is a choice between you and your baby. So you can choose to actually wake them up or leave them sleeping until they wake up by themselves to feed. Of course, when your baby is hungry, they will wake up. But as long as they're sleeping, it means they're actually full. So that is actually up to you to decide. How many times a night should a baby feed? Well, as a newborn, your baby can wake up to feed around 4 to 6 times through the night. And this number continues to drop as they grow. You can actually start training them to sleep through the night by the time they are 4 months old. I know 4 months old is a bit early, but by that time, they're able to sleep for quite some time before they wake up to feed. Maybe they wake up around 1 to 2 times through the night to feed. The next question, how long should each breastfeeding session last? Well, every child is different. Some actually get distracted very fast. Others actually feed for some time before they get off the breast. But typically, you can tell your baby has had enough if they breastfeed continuously for around 10 to 15 minutes without leaving the breast. I mean, at that point, if they actually leave the breast, you can be sure they have had enough. So a breastfeeding session should last at least 10 to 15 minutes. It can go more for more time depending on your baby. That's why I said every baby is different. So just observe how much time your baby needs to feed and just flow with the rhythm. Your baby should actually guide you at this point. And do you always have to hold your breast when you're breastfeeding? Not really. For the first few days or maybe a week or two, when the baby is still learning how to latch, you can hold the breast for them so that they can actually latch properly. But once they have known how to latch and there is enough milk in the breast, you can just let them be. They can hold the breast by themselves and they'll be able to feed comfortably. Okay, also it depends on the size of your breast. If you notice that when you give the baby your breast, it's actually covering their face or distracting how they are feeding or blocking their breathing, you can actually hold the breast for them for as long as you need to. So it's actually up to you and the circumstances surrounding your breastfeeding. Okay, so are there disadvantages to breastfeeding? Well, breastfeeding has a lot of advantages, and the advantages really outweigh the disadvantages, because some of the disadvantages are something like the pain you experience at first when you are trying to teach your baby how to latch and all, and the difficulty that comes with it. For some women, they feel that they lose their body anatomy and their breasts sag or something like that. So if that is actually an issue for you, then breastfeeding may not be for you. Also, some people can experience, they can experience stigma for breastfeeding. Communities are different, places are different. So if someone is experiencing stigma around them, especially from family or their spouses or their friends, then it could mean a no for them when it comes to breastfeeding. So do breastfeeding babies cry more? I'm not sure. Breastfed babies actually tend to connect more with the mother, so they can actually cry more. But that is not a proven fact. Whichever way you choose, babies cry all the time. And it doesn't matter whether they're breastfed or bottle fed. So that is all the questions I could manage to answer at this time. As I mentioned earlier, you're free to ask any questions and we'll get back to you with with an answer, or we'll do a research on them and give back an answer. We are also in partnership with Milano Spencer Medical Center, so we can actually consult these things for you. So leave your questions in the comment section, or you can send us a message on our Facebook page, or you can leave us a message also on our website and we'll get back to you. Okay, so if you are new to this channel, please subscribe. Wholesome parenting is about real parenting. Actually face the real issues in life as a parent head on and get to solve them. So hit that subscribe button and let's go on this journey together. Thank you.